Welcome back, Officers of the Republic. It's your Coruscant Underworld Police Chief, APGAINS, for another episode of APGAINS at Night. I'll give you a couple seconds to take a wild guess as to what constitutes APGAINS at night. Your time's up. It's just APGAINS, but it's harder to see me. All right, so this is something that came up while I was driving, and I thought it'd be an interesting topic to talk about. Kind of an issue that's been persisting a lot in-game. And I know the thumbnail for this is probably going to be like, the Jabba problem explained, but Jabba is just like a microcosm of all of this. So we're going to talk about like the core root issue, how it's affecting different players, and why you shouldn't really worry about it. So link in the description. I'll link the Gambit podcast. I listen to every Galaxy of Heroes podcast known to man. And they actually just had an episode the other day. I was listening to it on my 2-hour commute home from work. And I can't remember if it was Solo or Zareth, but one of them mentioned kind of how they were frustrated about Jabba because, as you guys know or may not know, great guys, by the way, I highly suggest watching their Twitch streams and their YouTube channel. Well, I guess only Zareth does YouTube, but watching their Twitch streams, they exist at like top 200, right? So there's like about 400,000 people who play the game. And when you're like 9-ish million GP, plus all sorts of other factors, you can be up there in the top 200. I think Zareth might be top 50 or something like that. And an issue that they're foreseeing coming into is they have all the GLs, they got everything in the game, but Jabba cannot be farmed for free, technically. Like, obviously, they're spending a ton of money, but the free element is like Jabba's marquee characters are not technically soft whaleable, i.e. you can spend about half if you buy them in shipments as opposed to the gamble packs. But they're also like not farmable. Let me just double check here. I guess I have to activate Boosh to discover, or to at least show that she's not farmable. But so the issue that they were talking about was that this is like the first time where even the minimum amount of requirements to unlock the Galactic Legend don't exist, right? You don't have access to the character outside of literally whaling on them, which for you guys don't know, takes about $300 to $400 per character, right? So you can imagine you need 3 of those marquees plus a bunch of relics for all the characters you don't have, plus the gear, plus the GL himself, plus the tickets. It racks up a couple $1,000s easily. And the issue that they were saying is that this is like the first time that these top 200, top 50 players don't have access to it. And I thought it was a perfect segue into a larger discussion that a lot of people kind of either don't think about or forget, or just kind of leave out of a lot of their statements about, the spending habits of players, but also the spending, the marketing strategies of capital games. So let's break this down from like a fundamental standpoint, if I have any Coach Kent Murphy fans out there. So in mobile gaming, there is this theory that, we won't even talk about skill. I'm not going to talk about Datacrons or matchmaking. We're just going to talk fundamental level. There's a core principle in gacha games like this where they want to figure out what the maximum amount of money they can get each player to spend. Now, some players are going to play for free, and those are going to boost marketing numbers when they talk to EA, or those are going to boost, how the game looks on the App Store to draw new players in. And free-to-play players in most games exist as whale food, right? Some players spend $100 for the lifetime. Some people spend $100 a month. Some people spend $1,000 a month. So the reason that they're adding all of this, temporary power, right? People are really upset. I promise I wouldn't talk about Datacrons, but just give me 30 seconds. Don't click away. The reason that people are upset about Datacrons is because they disappear after a while, right? Set 1 was pretty cool. Set 2 is going to disappear, and I'm not even going to get into the dusting and how stupid that is. But this exists for the sole reason of not creating unique metas, but because they have not reached the point where the upper echelon of players will stop spending, right? When you're in that top 200, top 500 even, but especially that top 50, top 100, like, it's the old joke about mobile games, like a doctor and a lawyer get into a GAC battle, who wins? CG does, right? They still haven't reached the point where they've figured out what the maximum amount of people will spend, right? A lot of other people are capping off, like they're not going to spend on Datacrons, like Arnold, for instance. Arnold, very good player, pre-Datacrons, was in the top, I think he was top 2 or something like that, all this stuff. But he's a good player, right? But he doesn't spend on Datacrons, so he's going to drop and drop and drop and drop, because that was his threshold, right? He spent like $40,000, but That was the threshold. There's players who have wailed out on Datacrons. You guys watch one of my favorite people to watch do GAC just because it's a fun show. Heinze wailed out on Datacrons, gives him a big advantage. A lot of these top players do that. Some players like Loki, who's a perennial top 5 player and one of the better players that the game has, big spender, but he's kind of crashed out on GAC and switched to TW because it hit that threshold where he no longer wants to spend the money, right? So they're still trying to find that upper echelon where people will keep spending and spending and spending. So that's why we got Datacrons. That's why we got these mod slicing materials. Like I like the mod update, and I think a lot of the mod update for lower GP and mid-game players is very good, but don't kid yourself. Like these slicing, let me just pick a random mod, like these calibrating things exist because that's another ploy to try to get you to spend more and more money. There's a new market that you can keep spending. That's why this thing is unlimited. I mean, you have thousands of mods on your characters. There's an unlimited amount of money you can spend on that. Going back to Datacrons for a couple seconds, again, please don't leave because I'm saying the D word. But the Datacron pats, I don't even know if they're still in the store. But when they were, they're unlimited. Come on, don't fail me now. Where's the Datacron pack? It's got to be here somewhere. They're always in the store. I think it's because there's no conquest, so there's no need to have a Datacron pack out right now. But you get what I'm saying. Like, they're unlimited. Omicrons, I really thought they were going to go in that direction, but they didn't pump out enough Omicrons, and that's just kind of a microcosm of CG doesn't really have enough people working on the game right now from staffing shortages that it's hard to pump out those reworks, those Omicron updates, right? That's why we're not getting a lot of content. So that didn't really work. But that's the reason that everything is modular. It's 2 reasons. One, they just literally don't have the people to keep pumping out new, fresh content, so it's got to be modular so it's easier to fix. But also it gives them unlimited and recurring places for the top-end players to spend money because they haven't found that point yet, right? Like, as people drop off, it's usually because they've hit the threshold of, you know, how much they're willing to spend. You see all these big content creators who have been leaving over the past couple of years, all your guild members who've left. It's just gotten to the point where they are in the game. They feel like they can't keep spending, they can't keep competing, and whatever reason, you know, they've hit their limit, right? And CG's job as a mobile game company is to try and find that limit for all the players, because if you have a player who will theoretically spend $500,000, right? This is what Diablo Immortal did really well. Shitty game, right? Everyone admits it's probably one of the worst games ever. But from a monetization standpoint, there are some players who will spend $500,000. Like, there's some players who spend over $300,000 on Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, right? CG's job as a company is to find creative ways that are hidden under the disguise of, you know, progression or content or mods or conquest or whatever, right? Datacrons. Their job is to find those ways to figure out where that top level is. Because if you have a person who wants to spend $500,000, they're only spending $10,000, or they only can spend $10,000, right? It's $490,000 that CG isn't going to get. Right, and we've all watched on stream all these talks from these game developers where they go through the playbook of how these games have been successful, how CG has been successful. I mean, not with their first game, that was a flop, but, you know, luckily they got the Star Wars IP and now they have the Lord of the Rings IP, so those are powerful franchises. But even games like Candy Crush, where there is no like crazy IP, they open the door to that maximum spending because some players will spend $1 million on a mobile game. I know it seems unfathomable for those of us making half of minimum wage, right? Like APGAINS and like a lot of you guys out there who are younger. Like, it seems like an incalculable number. But just know that there's people out there with a lot of money, right? There are people out there with a lot of money, and they're willing to spend it on what they enjoy and what they find entertaining, right? So if you can disguise whatever it is that they like, it's Datacrons, it's mod calibration, it's character drops and marquees and Galactic Legends, to go back to the first point we had about Jabba, right? Their job is to find that threshold, and that's why we're getting a lot of this, you know, recyclable, highly monetized content, because that's how they finally figure out how much people are willing to spend. All right, I've been APGAINS. I am super late to go doing something, so I'm going to get out of here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe. We were trying to get 25K by the end of September for Save AP September. That's obviously not going to happen, but I don't know. Subscribe to boost my ego or whatever. Don't. I still love you anyway. Bye-bye.